This week's episode is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts. If you've ever thought about starting your own podcast or have tried, but just didn't have the time to figure out all the technical aspects, Pretty Easy Podcasts is here to simplify the process so you can focus on the fun parts of podcasting. If you want a true partner and personal producer at an extremely low rate, go to prettyeasypodcast.com right now to get started. Podcasting is supposed to be a fun and interesting time where you talk about the stuff you know and love, not a laborious process where you have to learn audio production and build your own studio. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com today to start a professional sounding podcast that is done your way. Pretty Easy Podcasts, making podcasting fun, convenient, and, well, pretty easy.
What's going on? This is Ken Reynolds from the Seattle Dragons, and this is the XFL show.
This is the future. This is not the past.
The new XFL will kick off in 2020.
If you smell what the XFL is cooking.
It's still football, but it's professional football reimagined.
This is our moment, our story to tell. This is history begun.
This is the XFL!
Welcome, football fans. This is the week of December 22nd, 2019. This is the road to 2020, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
I'm Jake.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Bryant.
This week, minicamps finished up across the XFL. Teams made roster moves, and we even got our first trades. This is episode 101. Aloha! It means hello and goodbye. We will soon be saying goodbye to 2019 and hello to 2020, where we are 7 weeks away from kickoff in February. And I mean, with this week's episode, all the stuff we have to talk about, it feels like a giant mountain to climb, Jake, but still, we're pretty close to kickoff.
Closer than ever. And let's just go back a second. Aloha means goodbye also. I thought that was just a greeting for hello.
Aloha. Aloha is like you get aloha too. You could also be a noun and an adjective at the same time.
Yeah, aloha. It means hello and goodbye, Jake. You learn something every week.
Aloha.
Aloha. You learn something.
I don't think it's aloha.
You learn.
I think that's a first name.
You learn on This is the XFL show, Jake. That's what it's all about, learning. We're going to learn a lot today because we have 2 tremendous guests, a ton of news to talk about. I cannot wait for everybody to hear this who hasn't heard it yet. June Jones, speaking of aloha, June Jones, former Hawaii legend, Houston Roughnecks head coach, general manager, on the show today. Vince, talking what else, run and shoot.
Yeah, this is something to hear. Very excited for all the listeners to get a load of this because this guy, he knows offense, and I've been saying it kind of since he was hired as the Houston Roughnecks coach. This is his kind of league where he could just get out there and just develop all kinds of crazy plays, things to score points. And that he talks about that in this interview, how, he's really going to, some of the innovations of the XFL are going to be kind of tailor-made for what he likes to do. If there's one coach I can't wait to see get out there and see what he's got, it's got to be June Jones, and the listeners are really going to enjoy this.
With how the rules are apparently going to be set up, it's very likely June Jones ends up being Mr. XFL, Vince. And I was kind of convinced talking to him this week, and that interview will be airing later on today's program with another interview. We got 2 good, crisp interviews this week because we also have Dallas Renegades defensive end Winston Craig, who has a very interesting journey to the XFL, has been grinding. One of, I would say, the quintessential type XFL players when you talk about guys who have been through it all when it comes to pro football already at such a young age, just trying to find their footing. He played at Richmond, was a team captain there, and went through the AAF and was pretty much a standout there with the Commanders. Bryant went through Steeler camp. The XFL comes along, and Winston Craig tailor-made for this league as well, and he joined me earlier for a discussion on what it was like going through minicamp, and we're going to get the insight from a player on that. But Bryant, you were also at minicamp this week for the LA Wildcats.
Oh, that was an experience like no other. It was a lot of fun to be on the field. I was there for 2 days for their fan event on Sunday, and I went back on Monday to speak to Commissioner Luck, which we're going to get into a little bit later. But that was a pretty cool atmosphere. I'm not gonna lie about that. I mean, there was teams trying to figure out these new rules and players just grinding out there. A lot of one-on-one drills. I thought I was going to see some Okie drills, Vince. I thought of you when I saw that was going to happen.
No hitting in minicamp, Bryant. Not just yet.
officially, no hitting.
So yeah, we'll get into some of what Oliver Luck said, some of what happened at LA Wildcats minicamp and other minicamps around the XFL. Looking back though at last week, it was episode 100. Thanks to everybody for all the love on that milestone. Everybody reaching out on social media at XFL Show, telling us congrats and whatnot. But after we recorded the show, Bryant, we landed a couple of good, crisp interviews we threw in there just in the nick of time for everybody.
Oh, I was on the beaches of Laguna Beach when I got the call to get some interviews in for this week. So I had to stop what I was doing and get those in. So thanks to Tim Cook and Keenan Reynolds from the Guardians and Seattle Dragons, respectively. It was pretty cool. Good insight, different journeys, but same goal, and to be successful in the XFL and beyond. So thanks for them for their time. And I thought we got some good information, especially, what it's like to be kind of a journeyman in the football world nowadays, and to go through practice squad to practice squad and end up, in the XFL now.
Yeah, you go from talking about a guy like Keenan Reynolds, who's in the limelight as a college star. You talk about like guys we're talking to today. The guy we're talking to today, Winston Craig, who played at a smaller school in Richmond, but has been noticed by scouts for his talent and has been just on the cusp of making it in the pros, and now is in the XFL, just went through Renegades camp. So we're getting insights from players, and they all have a different story. They're all super interesting. And we're going to have another one for you later on today. Also, though, looking back at last week, authentic jerseys went on sale, while replica jerseys, Bryant, were flying off the shelves. People are picking up their XFL gear. Those authentic jerseys, $225 a pop if you want them for the holidays on XFL.com.
Yeah, we'll get them now because you only have a few days until Christmas. But the authentic jerseys, $225. I've never bought an official NFL jersey. Jake, I'm sure you have a collection of them. I don't know if that's the accurate price of $225 per. Can you confirm that?
I only have 2 official NFL jerseys. I don't know that actually. $225 for a real one actually seems a little low. Vince, what do you think?
Well, no.
Is that about the going rate? I haven't bought in one for a while.
I'd say for an authentic jersey, something like the good stuff, you should expect to pay around $200. Depending on what sport. Some may cost a little bit more, a little less. But a good jersey, I would say $200 in that range is a good price to pay. And I'm sure these things are. I haven't seen one in the flesh, but I'm sure that they are nice. So, $225 seems like a good deal to me.
If anybody's looking to get me a present for the holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever,
No one is.
Mr. XFL on a Guardians authentic jersey. I would love that.
Mr. XFL. You're crowning yourself Mr. XFL?
Until June Jones takes it from my mantle. So, yeah, the jersey's up on XFL.com. Super cool to see people tweeting those out, pictures of them in their jerseys. Shout out to Mike Jones with a billion S's on Twitter, who tweeted out his coffee mug collection as a coffee freak. Seeing those, that looked really cool. And I got to get me some of those. Actually, I'd want those more so than the jerseys, Jake. The coffee mugs are nice. Other quick bit of news from the week. The first ever pick in the XFL from 2001 Vince, Scott Milanovic was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and there's a whole bunch of movement down there with that team in terms of their staff. He took a job up in the CFL coaching the Edmonton Eskimos. He'll be the head coach there, but that's a little XFL tie. I don't know if you remember way back when we did a feature on him on one of the very early episodes.
Yeah, I do remember that. XFL Legends highlighted him. That's a interesting path there from Jacksonville all the way up to Edmonton.
He can't make it. Let's don't kick it.
Yeah, I mean, to be the head coach though, that's a step up, baby. In the CFL, you know me, I'm going to be watching him coach. There's Scott Milanovic, first ever pick in the original XFL, and then here we go at XFL show. After last week's show, we talked a lot about apps and fantasy XFL, and we had a really interesting question asked Bryant by @UK_XFL on Twitter, who said, listening to the pod, you mentioned DraftKings. Would they be the best, most viable option, seeing as McMahon owns a percentage of them, them being DraftKings, Bryant? And that is true. Vince McMahon has a stake in that company. I think that makes sense. And we've talked about it, how you want another company pretty much to handle your fantasy gaming. And that would make a lot of sense since there's already a familiarity there to me.
If the partnership is there, I say use it. But at the same time, do I think that's the only reason that DraftKings might be interested in the XFL? Probably not. I think DraftKings in itself, the fantasy aspect, anytime you get to play some more fantasy football, would probably be the reason why you're invested in doing this.
Yeah, to me, DraftKings will not be the only one. I expect FanDuel to be involved. All the major daily fantasy players.
Would you want to have an exclusive partnership, Vince, or would you want it to be spread out?
Well, that would be interesting. If one of these sites, I don't know if you could really stop a site from, having a fantasy contest with your league. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe we get somebody from DraftKings on the show to ask them that.
Oh, that'll be fun. At least when some sort of partnership is announced with whomever the partner ends up being.
If there is going to be, I know that some of these sports books, as well as some of these daily fantasy websites, they will purchase information from the leagues in order to sharpen up their odds and whatnot. But NBA has been involved in that kind of stuff. So I could see that kind of thing happening, but I wouldn't say it's going to be exclusive. But money talks, I suppose.
I'm pretty sure you and all the listeners know I don't know anything about fantasy. So you're talking another language to me. But I want to go back to what Vince said. Like, do any other leagues do this where they say you can't do fantasy on our sport on your site?
I've never heard of anything like that.
You can do that. Can you do that?
Well, maybe you can't. I don't know.
No, I mean, that wouldn't make business sense, right? You want to be of people with eyeballs on your product on as many platforms, I think, at least in that realm, in the fantasy realm, as possible.
I'll say this, that there are restrictions for whatever reason on college daily fantasy football and fantasy basketball. That has to, I'm guessing that has something to do with, state legislatures and, schools and things of that sort. But in professional ranks, I've never heard of that.
Well, good question there from UK XFL on Twitter. And we are waiting with bated breath on a fantasy announcement, just like everybody else. Among the other handful of announcements we expect here in the next few weeks before kickoff in February. So appreciate it. Reaching out there at XFL Show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, we're everywhere. And, of course, you could call in 724-565-4XFL if you want to voice your opinion, ask a question, get on the show. We've got the voicemail there open, the XFL fan line for you, 24/7, 365. Just dial it up, 724-565-4XFL. Hey, football freaks, it's Alan. I just want to take this time to give a special shout out to our gentle patrons who contribute to our Patreon page so generously, making it possible for us to do this show and a bunch of bonus content each and every single week, having fun, talking football. If you want maximum XFL coverage, I really encourage you to check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/thisisthe XFL show. There are multiple different tiers to choose from. You get all sorts of different content based on the tier you subscribe to, and that includes bonus shows, mini-sodes, rankings episodes, early access to the regular show, and a whole lot more. Go to patreon.com/thisisthe XFL show to check it out. If you feel like contributing, we welcome it. We love you for it. If not, thanks for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode of This is the XFL show. We mentioned them, the two good crisp interviews coming up, June Jones and Winston Craig. We're going to get into a lot of the notes still from Oliver Luck's tour around minicamps that ended this week, but he still gave out some more information regarding rules and insight into what the league's going to be like. But before we get to what the commissioner said, before we get to those interviews, we must discuss a literal giant of an announcement of a release out in LA, one everyone was talking about, one Bryant was there witnessing go down firsthand, among other moves, shaking and moving with trades in the XFL out of nowhere. It's time to get to this week's Cover 2.
Going for two. Go for two and the lead.
Moves being made, players being dealt, players being cut. It is that time in the schedule, the offseason schedule for the XFL, and there were some trades that happened, but before all that, Bryant, huge move made by LA in terms of the size of a human being and also, the hype behind the player going into camp. Unfortunately, though, Sean Oakman cut by the Wildcats, and it is a thing that everybody's been talking about all week long, and you were there witnessing firsthand.
A very noticeable missing piece to the team when I arrived at minicamp, for obvious reasons, right? Oakman just not someone you can not notice not being there, I guess you could say. But Coach Moss was very direct about why he was no longer in practice and basically said that it was in best interest of the team to not have Oakman there anymore. And I think that speaks volumes in the sense that the XFL is taking this seriously and they're not actually just doing this for show, right? Oakman having him be on the team, kind of the same thing with John Manziel or anybody like that. You have these players for notoriety purposes, and but Moss felt like Oakman wasn't going to do the Wildcats any service, so they let him go, and I guess there's not much more to it, but it's just very interesting that the XFL is taking that approach with one of the players that they've highlighted since the draft.
And wasn't he on the video for the jersey reveal? He was one of the individuals.
Yep.
Right. So yeah, that's, I mean, personally, as someone that has not, picked a team or is not ready to wave a flag for anybody specifically, I wanted to see what he still had.
Yeah, that's what's shocking to me was that this was a guy that was being marketed already, and you could see why. He's he's the size of an oak tree. He's huge, and he had a bunch of charisma on display during that jersey reveal. But also, Vince, this is a player that had a ton of personal issues in college, trying to get to the pros, and then he winds up getting drafted in the XFL. So we knew we had this, stigma behind the player, and unfortunately, who knows what exactly went down, but it must be related to maybe the behavior or the that aspect of this player's history. Because I mean, why would you give up a human being that large other than it's just too much of a headache?
Yeah, a checkered past there for sure. No denying that the guy's got some talent. Nobody's ever going to dispute that. Now we were not there. Bryant, he was the closest to the situation, and he didn't hear anything about it could have been just trouble in the locker room. It could have been an attitude or effort situation. It could have been maybe looking more into his past, and maybe a second chance just isn't in the cards. We don't know exactly what it is, but I'm sure there were some good reasons behind it. And yeah, it's a blow to the LA Wildcats. But as far as the league is concerned, I don't think it's that big of a deal, even though it was somebody that was marketed.
Yeah, and you don't make that decision without thinking long and hard about it. I'm sure the LA Wildcats did not want to just let go of a player who can potentially be a game changer. But, whatever the issue was, Sean Oakman gone from the Wildcats. Jake, do you think another team should give him a shot?
I would have to say no, thank you. I think I'd have to pass on that. I mean, if it didn't work out with one team, I don't think it's going to work out with another. Now, of course, if there's a coach out there that wants to take on this potential, I'm going to call it a challenge. Like I said, we don't know everything, but certain things can be assumed for a situation like this. Somebody trying to continue their football career and it's not working out. So if another coach wants to, fine for them. But if I was in charge of the team, I think I would pass on it.
We'll see what happens with the career of Sean Oakman. The LA Wildcats move along. They also made some other moves, cutting Jeremiah Spicer-Bryant, a player that's also been talked about a lot going into this year just because of his story and how a lot of people are rooting for him. Unfortunately, though, didn't make it all the way through minicamp.
No, he didn't, and it is a good story. And I'll read the quote that the Wildcats put out on Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a special case. He deserved the shot. We gave him an opportunity. It was unfortunate we had to release him, but we have to do what's best for the Wildcats. The same kind of instance with Sean Oakman in the Jeremiah Spicer cases. The Wildcats, and I'm going to assume all 8 teams are doing this. They're looking at what's in the best interest of the team, regardless of the story or the player or the talent. They're looking to build a championship team. So, it is a great story, and I'm glad he got the opportunity. And who knows if he'll get another opportunity with another team. But the man seems like he never quit. So I'm sure I can almost guarantee it's not the last time we're going to hear his name. We'll just see if it's ever going to be in a Wildcats uniform again.
So in addition to those moves the Wildcats made, they also made some trades. And the first XFL trades have officially gone down. And as of anyone listening to this program this week, more might have actually happened, but we've got 3 here in front of us we can address. The first one, the Wildcats sending Jalen Collins, the cornerback who played football at LSU, to Tampa Bay for a guy they got really early in the draft, Arian Springs, and that is a pretty kind of blockbuster deal when you consider at least where the players were drafted, Vince. A corner for a corner there in one of the first ever XFL trades. Were you blindsided that didn't really expect trades to happen, or at least they weren't telegraphed, but there they go.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I didn't expect trades to happen, but it is interesting, I guess. Now would be the time. Training camp may be a little too late, too close to the season, although, it does happen in other professional leagues. But here, you only, we had the summer showcases that, we were represented at some of them. And, you get a good look at in as many, football type drills and kind of a tryout as you can. But and you watch as much film as possible, but you don't really have a feel for how these players are going to respond in your environment until you really have them in your camp. And then you make some decisions from there. So I guess that's kind of what they were saying is, apparently these 2 gentlemen were not good fits on their particular team. And then a swap was made. I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more of these kind of deals happen before training camp kicks off on January 4th.
It's always interesting when you have the same position traded for the same position, just straight up 1 for 1. Because normally you're either too heavy in the cornerback and you go for a lineman or vice versa, something like that. When you go, cornerback for cornerback, there must be a certain skill set available for each one of those cornerbacks that you're looking for that wasn't available in the one you traded away.
Or maybe it's a familiarity issue too. Maybe these coaches saw a player out there on another team and said, I want that guy, and maybe we can make the move when the time's right. And there you have it. Another one LA made was a defensive tackle for a defensive tackle. Trayvon Sanders, who played at Troy, was sent to Tampa Bay. Again, Vipers and Wildcats doing business with each other, Jake. And the Wildcats got Leon Orr, who played at Florida. What do you think about 2 teams establishing that kind of relationship this early?
I think it's wishful thinking. I mean, do you think there's a larger plan?
I don't think there's a larger plan, but I mean,
I don't either.
You see this often. All across leagues, teams are like familiar with each other's front offices, and they're friendly with each other, making these kind of moves when they need to.
You see certain teams that that always play each other in the preseason, but I don't think they're that buddy.
Well, it's kind of like, well, it's not quite like this, but I think what Alan's trying to say is kind of like in the NFL, you got the Steelers and Cardinals. The Steelers say, hey, we're not going to re-sign this guy. And the Cardinals say, okay, we'll sign him. That's kind of what happens.
And in exchange, we will fill up your stadium with our fans whenever we play there.
Or I think
we'll buy your tickets.
I don't know, Brian. You follow the Dodgers. We follow the Pirates. In baseball, this is a regular occurrence. Like there are teams that do business with other teams more often than they do it with anyone else across the league. Like the Pirates and give like all their players to the Yankees and Red Sox. It seems all the time. I don't know if you notice that with your team, but that happens in baseball for sure.
Oh, it does. And you also see teams not do business with each other just based on location, right? The Dodgers and the Angels never trade players. The Mets and the Yankees and the Rangers and the Islanders. The Jets and the Giants, I think, completed their first trade in like 12 years or something like that this past summer. So I could see it happening. I don't know if that's actually happening in the XFL right this moment, Alan, as you're saying, but it could happen. I mean, teams build relationships. They only play each other once a year anyway. So
notice that they are cross country, different divisions. Just saying. And the third trade we have here in front of us for the first few trades in the XFL ever. Dallas sends a defensive end, Marcus Jones, played at Angelo State, to St. Louis for the Battlehawks wide receiver Keith Mumphrey, who played at Michigan State. And there is a case where teams in, again, different divisions making a trade.
Trading within divisions, you don't see that too often. But trading out of divisions all the time, certainly you don't feel like you're going to get as burned if you're on the wrong side of the trade, I guess. Is how teams probably feel. But like I said, I expect to see a lot more of these trades as these mini camps come to a close.
Yeah, and more might have actually, like I said, have happened since we recorded this episode live on tape. But those are the three that we have in front of us as of our recording this week. And we, of course, will be keeping an eye on those with transactions in the XFL coming fast and furious. Adam Schefter's getting into the XFL game now, tweeting about trades now, Jake. And that brings, I think, some legitimacy, at least in terms of the coverage. It makes it really noticeable to fans out there. People are getting interested because of it.
Yeah, definitely. The big names, just like the big networks, the big broadcast partners and the announcers. I want to go back to, we're talking about teams that don't like to do business with each other. Alan, do you think that, if the Angels and the Dodgers want to work out a deal, is the only person that could negotiate that would be David Hasselhoff?
Oh yeah, to get those two people, those two entities.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a precedent.
There is, and I think that might be the only way you're getting that. Although I don't think that's happening anytime soon. That might be a sneaky World Series pick. But this isn't a baseball show, Jake. And I know Bryant wants to talk all about the Dodgers, but we need to move on because minicamps broke. They're gone. They've come and they've gone and they're over with. And now we're into the holidays and then it's training camp. And super interesting coming out of these minicamps because all the coaches gave quotes to local media. They're all over XFL.com too if you want to check those out. A lot of positivity out of these camps. Like we said, we just went over some moves being made, but I think it's fascinating reading between the lines on some of these quotes and maybe trying to pull something out of them here, Vince. Like Jonathan Hayes in St. Louis coming out of his minicamp said he's super excited for his quarterbacks and was honest saying Jordan Ta'amu needs to slow down a gear a little bit and get some experience. Whereas his other quarterback, Brogan Roback, he said is emotional at times. I think that's pretty candid for a coach coming out of a minicamp. What do you think, reading between the lines, that means about the St. Louis quarterbacks?
That they haven't quite made up their mind yet, I suppose. I'm not surprised about Ta'amu. A young kid that, was able to put up some big numbers at times at Ole Miss, especially with some nasty wide receivers on his team. So I'm not surprised. There's going to be a learning curve there, and maybe looking towards a veteran, maybe stabilize some things. It's going to be interesting to see how that turns out.
And then over down in Tampa, Jerry Glanville, a legendary coach. I mean, in his 70s, a coach who literally has seen it all, is hyping up his defense unlike any coach I was reading about. And I read everything I could this week coming out of these mini camps. And this guy had the most interesting quote saying, quote, I've had a lot of football teams. These players are not normal. We're very fortunate. Defensively, we're going to run better than anybody you've seen run. Jerry Glanville confident in the speed of his team.
I talk a lot on this show about Bob Stoops and how I still can't believe that he's in this league, but Jerry Glanville isn't too far behind. I just cannot believe that he's coaching in this league, and this guy, a tremendous coach, tons of experience. This guy knows football for sure. These are some bold words he's talking, and this guy's a great talker too. Make no mistake about that. This guy could talk, and he's a hell of a coach as well. You're talking about defenses in this league and how much defense is going to be played. It sounds like Tampa Bay is going to be bringing it, and I can't wait to see this defense in action. And it sounds like they're really going to be flying all over the field, these guys. Good pursuit.
Well, yeah, the good pursuit, but can they tackle? He didn't mention anything about tackling. I mean, I'm glad your defense can run, but they got to make a tackle.
He just said his players are not human.
Not normal. Let's not put words in his mouth there, Jake. He said not normal. These players aren't normal, right? They're very different athletes than we're used to. But look, it's getting some positive feedback from all these coaches and some honest feedback is something that I'm very excited for. Alan, I know you were talking about the quarterbacks in St. Louis, and I wanted to say something, but I had to just stop and kind of think about what we're actually talking about compared to what we were talking about, 6 months ago in terms of the XFL. So much to get into with these players. These are just 2 camps that we're really discussing, 3 if you count LA. But getting all these coaches' quotes and trying to dissect what they're talking about, man, this is the excitement. This is what I can't wait for. I can't believe we're only 7 weeks to kick off.
Yeah, and coming out of these mini camps, you have to wonder what it's like in each city in terms of coming out of it. What are these coaches, what is their real feelings about their depth charts, right? Like how much depth charting was actually done during mini camp, or is that all going down in training camp? Other than quarterback, if I'm a head coach, I'm not settling on anything until we get down to Houston.
Ooh, no, you got to be putting something together now.
Yeah.
You have to know. Observing the Wildcats mini camp, you could see that there was first teams and second teams already.
Well, I'm going to have an idea of who's going to go out and practice, and I'm going to be rotating into first and second team units, but I'm going equal for everybody. I need to get as much of a look at everybody as possible in this team building portion of the preseason.
Well, you got to do that, but you got to give everybody a shot. You got to find out what you have, but at the same time, you got to have a plan, and you got to have a plan for what your first team is. Alan, you were an offensive lineman. You know how important that is to settle on your top 5 guys and really gel as a unit. You think they're going to just pull names out of a hat, and the first 5 guys are going to be the first team?
No, but I'm just saying you cannot possibly know who your best 5 are coming out of minicamp. There wasn't even any hitting going going. Training.
All right.
Well, that's true.
The water boy is going to select from this hat, and this individual is going to be your nose.
They're going to roll dice, and whatever number comes up, you just get into position.
I think
from what I'm hearing,
an idea about it.
Yeah, well, from what I'm hearing, and we can't really confirm all these, but the way camp's going to go down, training camp down in Houston, things are going to be moving fast. Things are going to be very competitive down there. So I don't know if you really have that much time, Alan. I know you have 3 weeks down there, but I don't think you're going to have that much time to really decipher who are your best players. Minicamp, you need to start having that plan already.
Minicamp, you get your idea, and that's where coming out of minicamp is where you say, okay, I know going into training camp, this is who I want to see first, but I'm not settling on, week 1, these are my guys. You can't possibly do that coming out of minicamp when the competition heats up in Houston January 4th.
Well, it definitely is going to heat up January 4th. I promise you that. You have a depth chart, and you see who moves up and down on it once the training camp starts. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I think everybody has a secret list going on, that only certain individuals get to, if you're in the inner circle, who's on the list.
That's probably what's going on. These coaches I would keep it very tight-lipped, even my players who I'm liking the most. I wouldn't say who stood out at minicamp publicly too much, because you want these guys competing in Houston, and you want to get an equal look, I think, at everybody. So yeah, you start depth charting, but you don't put anything in pen. It's all pencil right now, baby, because you've got only 7 weeks to figure out who your best players are for February 8th and 9th.
Alan, I'll finish off on this. We do know this, though. The Dallas Renegades, with their list, it's going to be 100% accurate, whatever it is that they put on their list now.
It will be exactly as they wanted it back before minicamp, and it was there all along. Yeah, just like the draft. They got everybody they wanted on their board, 100%. Another piece coming out from a coach this week, coming out of minicamp, Kevin Gilbride was on legendary sports talk radio station WFAN in New York City, and he was talking about the speed of the game and the relationship of the coaches with Vince McMahon. Really interesting to hear him say this. And he said, just putting this out there, the rule book isn't out just yet, but talking about if you kick the ball out of bounds, the ball comes to the 35-yard line, which we've talked about a little bit on the show. But he said if you kick the opening kick out of bounds, it actually goes to the opponent's 45-yard line. They want returns. That's from Kevin Gilbride on WFAN, Vince. So that opening kickoff, when you've got Crazy Train playing and everybody's going nuts for the beginning of a game, if it goes out of bounds, the game's starting on the 45.
Yeah, that's a huge penalty. You better kick it towards that end zone.
And that's Kevin Gilbride kind of giving us a little sneak peek at the rule book, Jake, that we're gonna hopefully see here pretty soon.
Yeah, we're desperately awaiting the rule book. It's really it may be the last piece, the last piece of the puzzle that we need here.
So the last piece of the puzzle before we know what team you're going to be rooting for?
Sure.
Alan, what
That's
percentage of the rules
your puzzle, at least?
What percentage of the rules do you guys think is going to be focused on in terms of changes in the kicking game, punting and kicking?
You mean okay, so
it seems like a very highlighted focus of the rule changes, right? It's all the kicking rules.
Like the portion of the XFL rule book that looks most different compared to, say, the NFL rule book, you're saying. Yes. It has to be, I'm going to say, the kicking game, because there will be a number of little rules, I think, that are changed there that we've already heard about compared to the clock and, little tweaks like that. And the one we're going to get into here in terms of communication, I think you're right. The kicking game seems to be where most of the changes have been made.
Well, it probably will be, and I think it also, if you just look at offense and defense, there's so many rules on both sides. Kicking game, there's far fewer rules. So just by percentage, I think that's going to look the most different.
Mini camps are over with. The coaches have spoken, and now they will go into a week off and enjoy, hopefully, their holidays before they all convene on Houston. H-Town will be home to the XFL training camp. All 8 teams will be there, and we cannot wait for it. But a very well-deserved break here coming up with the holidays. Little bonus cover, too, here, some extra notes I wanted to get in here. Visis, who is a helmet partner for the XFL among, I believe, 2 or 3 partners, apparently will not have rumored to not have their order ready for the XFL in time for training camp. They're a Seattle-based company, and it's a technology-enhanced helmet, the Visis brand, and apparently they're having issues as a business, so there could be an issue is what the rumor was. Official XFL statement made after reports about that from places like Fox Business, Yahoo Finance. The quote is, "This is not an issue for the XFL. All our players are properly helmeted at our mini camps currently taking place across the U.S." So it is just one helmet provider of many, and the XFL will have helmets, Jake.
Yes, they will have helmets. I don't see any possible way where this is going to be a problem come kickoff.
That was my initial reaction too. It was like, if I'm not mistaken, all the players have helmets as we speak right now in minicamp. So it was just very interesting when I saw that come up, that people were not panicking, but creating an issue. I mean, there's plenty of helmet makers out there. I'm sure the XFL would have wrote a check somewhere else and to get all those helmets.
Yeah, and to be fair, Brian, if this was something that came up on the AAF, we would have been ripping them big time.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I've never ripped the AAF. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yep, just one of a few helmet makers. No big issue, but something people were talking about this week. One other cool thing I read this week: John Alrand, who runs the Sports Business Journal 2020 predictions column this week. Really a bunch of crazy sports business predictions he's making for the upcoming year, Vince. And the XFL portion of this was awesome. He said the ratings are going to be big enough, and he's confident that they'll have a third season, not just 2, but 3 seasons at least. And he thinks that the debut broadcasts will exceed 2 million viewers on ABC and Fox.
Wow, that seems like a low prediction to me.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll be talking about this as we get closer to the start of the season. And then he's also predicting that FS1 and ESPN broadcasts are going to average 800,000 viewers. That also seems a little low to me. If these are now, it'd be interesting to know, what numbers ESPN and Fox would be happy with. But this seems low and very achievable, in my opinion.
I definitely think it's achievable, considering what we saw the AAF do as well. And just thinking about the marketing campaign that's to come, it has pretty much already started, at least on social media and here and there on ESPN. Fox, I'm sure, is going to pick theirs up as well, Jake. I mean, those could be low estimates, but either way, good stuff coming in the future, according to the Sports Business Journal, for the XFL ratings-wise.
Yeah, I don't see any scenario where they are not going to hit whatever their bottom line is in this. I'm with Vince and Brian, at least, who are saying we expect a little more, but we will have to see.
Real quick, just 2.9 for AAF on their debut on CBS.
2.9. And
million viewers.
And all they were getting were kind of really tiny little graphics during the NFL games late in the season, right, on CBS. That was all the marketing they were getting. You're already seeing Diana Rossini and Pat McAfee promoting it for ESPN and Colin Cowherd.
The Super Bowl coming up on Fox. They're going to be doing some. There's going to be some ads during the Super Bowl.
I can't wait.
2.2 million is nothing.
We might have to do a Super Bowl week. We might have to do a special bonus show just on where's Oliver Luck and what he's doing around. I mean, I can only imagine his schedule that week, doing Radio Row and doing all kind of promotion for kickoff the following week. That's going to be fun to follow the commissioner around and follow everything with the league that big week for the football world. Last piece here, bonus cover 2. Oliver Luck was talking about Bob Stoops while he was at Dallas for the minicamp, talking to Joseph Hoyt from the Dallas Morning News. And really interesting here, Vince, Luck actually swung and missed at first trying to get Bob Stoops to join the XFL, he admitted, but credits Dana Holgerson for giving him the tip that Bob Stoops wants to get back into the game. So Oliver Luck said he tried again and was able to land Bob Stoops as the Dallas Renegades head coach.
I'm just flabbergasted that Dana Holgerson had something to do with this. Oh my goodness! Wow.
Good friends with Oliver Luck.
I suppose. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
All right. So you're going to tell me I know we're pit people, but you're not at least going to go out and say thank you, Dana Holgerson, for giving that tip to Oliver Luck so we get Bob Stoops in the XFL? You got it.
Yeah, I guess. Thank you, Mr.
I still think he
can't
wants
say
to
thank
see
you
him
for something
on the sideline.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He can't say thank you for something he does not believe in yet. This is what it really is.
He's got to wait 7 weeks. Well, I know Daniel Holgerson coached WVU, Vince. He's no longer there, and that's a really cool story, the background Oliver Luck gave into how he landed Bob Stoops, who some people, including Vince, still can't believe is coaching in the XFL. But we've talked to him, Brian. I've seen him. He's been in front of you and I talking about the XFL and how he was drafted draft week. So we look forward to getting him on the show in the very near future again. But this week we have his rival head coach, Bryant, across the way down there in Texas.
Yeah, Alan, we spoke to June Jones. You and I had the pleasure of actually speaking to him and talking about some strategy. We even get into the natural rival that is Dallas versus Houston in what I'm calling the TM TexFL showdown. I could say TM, right? That means trademark.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Or a C with a circle on it, I think works too. I don't know.
Yeah, C with a circle, TexFL showdown between the Houston Roughnecks and the Dallas Renegades. But we get into a lot of good details, especially his quarterback battle down there as well. So it was a good interview, and I'm pretty sure that Vince is probably already thinking about how he can strategically use this interview against June Jones and give some sort of advantage to the Dallas Renegades.
Well, I am a big June Jones fan, so I'm not going to say that.
I think after this, Vince might flip allegiance to the Houston Roughnecks because June Jones was a good, crisp interview and also gives us crazy, awesome insight into what he expects and the coaches are feeling going into the XFL here. If you're ready, it's time to run and shoot with June Jones this week on our Good Crisp interview.
Good Crisp football.
It is now time for another Good Crisp interview for this week's show, and we have none other than GM and head coach of the Houston Roughnecks, June Jones, with us. Minicamp underway too down in Houston, where training camp's going to be.
We're excited that we get the training camp here. We don't have to move, so we're in our facilities. Everybody else is coming to us, and it's going to be a good look at what we're about to engage in. We're going to see every team. Kind of go against them almost like preseason games. So I think it's going to be a real positive thing.
Well, Coach, right now we're in the middle of minicamp. So, tell me what's the main goal or the mission for minicamp right now?
Well, for us, it's just to start coming together as a team and building those the chemistry amongst the guys. We've got our base offensive schemes, been able to get those in, and same thing on defense, to see, of the 70 who we think can make the team, who can play the game at a high level, and we've been able to do that.
And Coach, you got all your players there. You're implementing your system, and also, of course, looking who's going to make this team come February. And these days, as fans and you as coaches, you get to watch a lot more football than you used to. And Oliver Luck has said that seeing all these athletes, they're just better conditioned these days. And that gives us a bigger talent, and that's why we have the XFL. How noticeable is that to you now that you're in minicamp, seeing those guys run around out there?
Well, it's very, very noticeable. It's also, I believe that most of these guys are going to end up getting another shot May 1st when we're done, because their resumes are going to be on film for the NFL. And there's a lot of talented players. There's a lot of guys that can play that just weren't in the right place at the right time when they were on NFL teams. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I think this is the level of talent so far. To me, is very competitive, and a lot of, I would say, it wouldn't surprise me if 30 or so of our players sign NFL contracts after we're done.
Well, Coach, you mentioned 30 players. I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of your two quarterbacks. You surprised everybody taking a quarterback in the first round of that Phase 1 draft, just moments after it was announced that you would have Philip Walker as your assigned QB. Can you talk a little bit about the battle and the competition going on between them?
Well, both kids are really good kids, and both are, learning the system, and we're going to evaluate them. Obviously, you don't evaluate, some quarterbacks get better in games and some of them get worse. So, we're hoping we got two guys that can play for us. We're also going to add maybe two more guys here shortly, and I think those guys are very competitive too. So, you can't play without a quarterback, and that's why we took, you have, not only do you have to have one, you really need three. And so that's why we took Connor so high. He's played in the NFL. He's been in the NFL, and so has BJ. So we got two guys that have done it before.
Coach, in that draft, you took no tight ends, or at least, formal tight ends. Is the goal for the Houston Roughnecks just to run, shoot, and be the fastest offense in the XFL then?
Well, we're going to obviously be a lot of four wides, but we'll play with tight ends too, but I'll just use extra linemen for that tight end spot. And, that's what I've done in the past.
Yep.
In Hawaii at SMU and also in Canada. So it's worked out, and I know how to manage that.
Yep, we know that for sure with the run and shoot, Coach. And we're on the show, at least we're going to be counting how often you go with an empty set in the backfield as well. We know you're going to have a really fun offense come February.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, how much more creativity and fluidity in the play calling can there be, knowing that you're just not going to have the quarterback with the headset, but all the offensive skilled positions?
Yeah, well, definitely with them speeding up. I think if any coach has not coached in Canada, which I think Mark Tressman and I are probably the only two that have, we only had 20 seconds up there. And basically, the way they're going to spot the ball, and even though it's a 25-second clock, they spotted it right away in Canada. They're going to kind of hold it 7 seconds or so. So it's really going to be close to 32 seconds. So I'm not really worried about that part of it, but I do think those headsets are going to really help our receivers because we run so much. We run vertical down the field. They'll be able to walk back, and they can still hear the huddle call, and then just take their formation once they hear the play call. So I think it's going to help us from that standpoint, and I think the rest of the league, except Mark and I, probably will be finding out what the difference is of moving that thing to where you're 25 seconds.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun to watch, the how innovative you can get in the XFL. And we've talked a lot about that on the road to 2020, Coach, but defensively, it's also an interesting task for you as coaches. Your defensive coordinator, Ted Cottrell's been involved with some insanely good defenses through his long, illustrious career. How does the increased speed of the game affect how you and he approach preparing your defense?
Well, it's going to affect because, it's almost going to be like a 2-minute drill every quarter. And I'm sure there's a lot of, people playing that tempo game too. We're tempo, but we're not probably, as tempo as some of the other teams. Teddy, the defensive guys always have to be ready for that. And he's well aware of that fast-paced game that Vince wants. And I think we're going to see a lot of different things. We'll see a lot of special plays, a lot of double passes, a lot of those types of things that the fans all love to see.
Yeah, we're excited for those double forward passes for sure. I've been interested, though, because, we're talking about your experience as a coach, and early on, you were in the USFL. How's this process with the XFL compared to your tenure there in that league back in the 80s?
Well, as far as the coaching part of it, it's very, very similar, but this is way more. Vince is really committed to this. We had to scramble where we were going to eat. We didn't know, what hotels we're staying in. This is very well planned, more like an NFL franchise. In fact, I'd say the way we're operating, and even the NFL guys on our staff, the way we're treating the players, the way we're doing things is top level, just like the National Football League does. So Vince has made that commitment to make this a credible league. For the Houston Gamblers, we had a lot of fun, but we didn't have the money to spend in that league to do it right.
Coach, your season kicks off week 1 in Houston at TDCU Stadium against the Wildcats, but there's a lot of chatter out there about the natural in-state rival that you're going to have with the Dallas Renegades. I'm calling it the XFL showdown. Is there going to be a little bit more, muster a little bit more juice when you play against those Dallas Renegades?
I think there always is. It's a natural rivalry, and I think the fans will certainly be that way, and I think it'll trickle down to all the players. Although we have a lot of Texas players on our team, And if you've ever lived in Texas, you know that rivalry is one of a kind.
March 1st, I can't wait. And then again in April, Coach, those are going to be two big games for you against your natural rival. But you might get a taste of that in training camp because everyone's coming to your backyard. You talked about how cool that is. You don't have to go very far. And do you anticipate that being a really competitive atmosphere since that's essentially the league's preseason?
Well, I kind of think it is. And, you know, I think at the same time, we as coaches got to be very careful on because you don't want to have injuries. So we got to know how to practice, even though going against a different team, you got to kind of, help each other out there. We're going to practice against each other. And so it is one day going to be like a preseason game. The rest of them, you know, how Cleveland goes to, you know, practice against Pittsburgh or whatever. It's going to be more of that type of practice until the actual preseason game.
Well, that's going to be a fiesta in your backyard in Houston in January, Coach. Have fun with that. Have fun with the coming season. And just have fun because I've had my whole life as a football fan, I've pretty much known about your offenses. They've been some of the most fun offenses, and I'm so happy you're coaching in the XFL. And good luck with everything with the Houston Roughnecks.
I appreciate it, guys. Feel free to call me anytime.
Hey, football freaks, it's Alan. Just wanted to take the time here to let you know that this week's show is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts. If you're thinking of doing a podcast, there is a way for you to do a show without having to become an audio editing master, a production whiz kid. You can just go to prettyeasypodcast.com and get your own personal producer at a very, very low cost. That'll be someone who can guide you, assist you, help you out with whatever you need to get your podcast off the ground. If you have an idea or a topic you want to talk about on a weekly basis, a daily basis, it doesn't matter. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com. Get started today. Take some of the hassle of starting a podcast off your shoulders and let the audio professionals at Pretty Easy Podcasts help you out. Pretty Easy Podcasts is where podcasters go to get their shows recorded and posted with a complete podcast studio at their disposal. Record from home or your office or anywhere, really. Pretty Easy Podcasts caters to your schedule and gives you a producer for your show at your beck and call. Go to prettyeasypodcasts.com, sign up today, be heard, have some fun podcasting, and don't let a lack of technical knowledge hold you back. Go to prettyeasypodcasts.com today. Aloha, June Jones giving us the word from Houston Minicamp. The run and shoot has cometh to the XFL, and I just can't wait to see some linemen playing tight end in his system.
I don't think you realize how to use aloha yet still. I think it's mahalo for thank you. But yes, Vince, what do you think about June Jones taking linemen instead of actual tight ends for his formations there?
Smart. Why use a tight end when if they're going to block, you might as well just use a lineman. And if you're going to run a route, why not just use a receiver?
Really throws them off their game. They're looking for something else, and they're getting this.
And I like the insight he gave us there about the communication aspect of the game. We're going to get into that in the hot read a little bit later, but June Jones talking about how all of his receivers are going to be hearing him make calls, so the speed of the game is going to be a factor. And this is an offense that it's not run up to the ball every single time and snap it. It's just a lot of spreading out and observing what the defense gives you and adjusting your routes, but adding the speed factor that way to it might make it even more lethal than ever, Vince, this run and shoot.
Yeah, and especially, with the headsets that he talked about there, guys getting back to the line of scrimmage and changing routes and things like that. I mean, it could be lethal. Yeah,
like before, a player maybe would have had to go to the sideline and look at, pictures of shots from the top of the booth at what the defense was giving them. But now that kind of information is going to be coming in quicker than ever, and it's going to be communicated back to players quicker than ever. We'll see what June Jones could do. Like we've been saying, it kind of feels like it's almost made for a coach like him. And, And I'm telling you, Vince, I will not be surprised if he ends up being Mr. XFL because he's got the personality and also the mind for what this league wants for sure.
I've been saying that for a long time, and when we first heard about these headsets and the helmets for skill position players, I was a little skeptical, but right now I'm thinking that is going to make this game good and crisp.
Good, crisp football.
And then, of course, that quarterback issue that we're going to have to really focus on once we get to training camp in Houston, Bryant. But we need to move on to the Dallas Renegades now, where we were able to land one of their players this week. I got to speak with Winston Craig, who's a defensive end for the Renegades, and he went through the AAF. Unfortunately, that league folded, but here he is, a guy with another opportunity. We've talked to a few players like this, Bryant, but Winston Craig from the Dallas Renegades, a guy who stood out enough to get a shot at some NFL camps after the AAF folded, lands into the XFL with the Dallas Renegades. I mean, when you're a player, you saw all those players at Minicamp in LA. What you're going to hear my interview with Winston Craig. He's hyped, man. I have to imagine the guys you saw in LA too were just super excited to just be on a football field.
Well, the players and the coaches, right? Everybody's excited to get back. This is kind of what everyone was waiting for, is these moments. And you're right, Craig was able to take what he did in the AAF and kind of create a resume for himself. And now he's going to be in the XFL, going to be a huge part of these Dallas Renegades. So I'm sure, Alan, after this conversation, you'll hear about all his journey to get to this point, kind of what we've seen with all the other players. So thank you, Winston Craig, for spending the time to talk a little bit more and what to expect, obviously, from the Dallas Renegades.
Yeah, and you're going to also hear from Winston Craig here a little bit about what went down at minicamp for the Dallas Renegades, in particular what he did with his teammates and what Bob Stoops was telling the team throughout minicamp. Here it is, another good, crisp interview with Winston Craig, defensive end of the Dallas Renegades.
Good, crisp football.
Winston Craig, Dallas Renegades defensive end. Minicamp just finishing up. How intense and competitive did minicamp actually get there in Dallas?
Definitely competed, definitely got the work in, but in a smart way. So I think we learned a lot, got into the playbook a lot. And it just kind of gave us a chance to grab all the concepts of everything. So that way when we come back in training camp, we can hit the ground running.
And what's the atmosphere like among your fellow Renegades? Is everyone hyped for kickoff? Are they focused? Are they still kind of curious about what's to come? What's the feel amongst the players there?
I think it's good. I think Coach Stoops did a good job. I think everybody kind of bought in to what he believes in. And I think everything's been going good. We've only been out here for about 2 weeks or so, and I feel like the guys are already coming together, forming a good team, on the field, off the field, guys hanging out, studying together. So I think it's a good atmosphere. I think it'll be some fun football to come.
And what was the message? What has the message been from Bob Stoops as you guys kind of convened and had your first team activities there in Dallas? What was the message from your head coach?
Just be a pro, and that you got to take that in every aspect, waking up early, eating right, taking care of your body the right way, showing up to practice on time and doing everything, in a pro-like manner. And I think guys definitely responded to that, and that's exactly what it looked like. We were very organized, flying around. Like I said, we didn't have pads on, so we weren't hitting full speed, but everything else was full speed. And I think just that, pro attitude is just the way to go.
Yeah, man, and it's cool that, a lot of you guys are going to get the chance to, be professionals for longer than just, a preseason. A lot of the players in this league have been on NFL training camps, or practice squads, but they haven't gotten to go through an entire season. So that has to be really exciting for you, knowing that you're going to be going to the XFL, and preparing for a whole 10-week season.
Oh yeah, it's exciting, to play. Practice is great and all. You got to practice, and I still enjoy practice and everything. But playing the games during the season, that's the real fun part, and that's what you work for in practice to do. So I think, like you said, just very exciting, and everybody, people are just out of college. It's their first time. People, like you said, have been in practice squad roles, played games. So I think just everybody's excited to get into the season and get things going.
Now, you in particular, you were a part of the AAF last year. How's your experience in the XFL compared to that experience so far?
I think the concepts are very similar. Obviously the XFL try to run before, so I think they got things under control, and everything's just been run very smoothly here. And I think they have a great program in place that'll be here for a while, and just trusting what they're telling us.
Do you expect the competition level in the XFL to be at the level or higher than what you were experiencing in the AAF?
I treat all my opponents the same. So I guess to answer that question, I think the talent wherever you're playing is good, and I look at everybody like it's the best players, study them, and go take care of my business from there.
Got to respect your opponents. Absolutely, you're right, man. And I know you learned a lot about that because you were at Steeler camp, and I mean, playing for Mike Tomlin, that's a no BS head coach. What was your mentality like though after camp in Pittsburgh? Did you have your eye on the XFL? Where were you at that moment in your career?
I had heard about it, and some people had reached out about it, so I was definitely thinking about it. And then just waiting to hear a call from the NFL. Things didn't work out the way I wanted them to. So I came here, and just excited to be here, and definitely gonna take full advantage of the opportunity.
And this is something that I've been thinking about because it's really odd, because it is the first edition of a team, so everything's brand new, and that includes the leadership. And you were a leader and a captain at Richmond back in college. What is it like when you're a player and you're all new to the team because it's the first year of its existence? What's it like when guys are are guys like stepping up, trying to be more vocal or assuming leadership roles? How does that all work when it's a brand new team?
I think that just kind of happens naturally. I think now, in college, people are still figuring out who they are as a person. I think now, everybody's grown, and so when guys want to say something, they're going to talk. And I feel like it's not really much of a leadership role per se. I think everybody's a leader on the field, and kind of just talk with your play. That's the biggest thing. That's what people are going to follow is the people that play well. So just talk with your play, and if something needs to be said, I think people will say it.
And how was it there? Because I mean, you guys are getting to know each other for the first time. You're going to go through a whole season like family coming up here soon. What kind of team building exercise off the practice field did you guys do? Did you guys go bowling or out to the bars or anything? What was it like at minicamp getting to know your teammates?
Well, we're just at the hotel for the most part and at practice, so we're always hanging out pretty much the entire day until we head off to our rooms and go to sleep and everything. But I think the other thing, football is a small world, so a lot of these guys already know each other from different places. Maybe from the NFL, from college, the AAF. So a lot of these people already know guys that kind of helps the connection. And then after that, just eating with people and meetings, sitting in different seats. It just kind of all happens over time, just a couple of days, and things kind of were easy from there.
Well, man, it's got to be really cool getting to know all these guys who are as hungry to play football as you are, getting to play for Bob Stoops, a legend, breaking from minicamp, going into the holidays, knowing that you have training camp coming up in Houston. I mean, this has got to be the most wonderful time of the year for you, for sure, right? I mean, this is pretty special, the end of this 2019 going into February 2020 for you.
Oh, yeah, it's very exciting. Get to play ball. Holiday seasons are around, get to be around family and everybody. And then you get to come right back and put the pads on and play for real. So I think it's a great schedule. Have the mini camp, we get a little time off, get your body healthy and everything, and then come back full stride, hit the ground running.
Thanks to everyone at the Renegades and Winston Craig himself for helping us set up that interview. Another solid player discussion among a handful we've had here lately on the show. But I have to imagine they were kind of laying low at minicamp there, he said, just hanging out at the hotel. But come Houston, Vince, I'm hoping for some cool running scenes where these guys are going out to the bars and maybe letting loose a little bit, building up the camaraderie.
Yeah, we may see some of that with with all the teams in one town. It's an interesting dynamic. We haven't seen anything like it. I think it's an excellent idea. You could go back into the archives and get our initial thoughts on that. I love it. I can't wait to see these teams really get after it on January 4th.
And Jake, real quick, what do you think about Winston Craig saying that when I asked him about the, people stepping up as leaders on a team where there's no set leadership yet because it is all brand new, and he said everyone's vocal, everyone speaks their mind, everyone's a leader, and it just naturally becomes a thing where maybe one or two people stand out as the leader. What do you think about that? How do you think that process is going on across the league where captains and leadership is kind of rising up through the depth charts?
I'm sure you've got some clubs where certain individuals want to be the leader. And, from at least my personal experience and some others I've heard, if you keep referring yourself to the leader or a locker room leader, you're probably not. I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen organically.
You're right.
You almost have to be, an unspoken vote from your peers, I guess. But, everybody does it differently.
So you think if someone steps up and says, "Okay, guys, I'm the leader of this locker room," everyone's just going to start booing.
If you're standing on, no, they're not going to start booing and throwing tomatoes at them or anything like that. But if you're going to stand up on a bench and say, as the locker room leader, it's probably not going to be great for you.
All right. Well, thanks again to Winston Craig, June Jones, a couple of good crisp interviews this week. And those, of course, will be up on our YouTube page, isolated, if you want to hear them again by themselves. We always do that for you. But now we can take it here to the big finish. Oliver Luck wrapping up his tour of mini camps, giving out more awesome info. And we have some confirmations to make as well here in this week's Hot Read.
Blue 58! Blue 58! Go! Hey, Ric Flair! Ric Flair! Pepper, Flip, Caliber. O-Town, Happy, Jolly, Drop, Buster, Boomer, Tiger! I think he's got a hound too, Rodney, I think. V19! V19! Hey, Seattle! Where are you? Mars 83! Omaha!
Oliver Luck was in LA, he was in Dallas. Well, he was everywhere the last few weeks, going around to mini camps, and he made some confirmations. Last week we talked about some of the things he said. This week, the commissioner confirmed, as we alluded to earlier, headset communications for all offensive skill positions, and that is really going to make things interesting and fast-paced in the XFL.
Coach who's calling the signals will have not only communication to the quarterback who has a receiver, into his helmet, but also to all skilled players. So the wide receivers, running backs, tight ends will all have that receiver in their helmet to hear the play. So they don't necessarily need to run back into the huddle. So we focused on your sort of football tech that would help us play fast, play up tempo, and play good football. I'd play better football. So there are a number of innovations that we have that the fans will be seeing, but that's just one example of one of the things we're trying to do.
So, Jake, I totally subscribe to the fact that is going to help the quality of offense in the XFL, having every skill position player with communication directly to the coach. What do you think?
No, I'll agree with that. They want to make it a quicker game, and this is definitely one way to help that. If you don't have to, you can run, I don't know, could you theoretically run a no huddle every down?
Yeah, and
I think you're going to have to almost.
June Jones said it's going to be a lot like 2-minute drill for most of the game. It's going to be a lot of running out there and getting to the line. And I don't think we're going to see too many huddles, maybe some muddles, because who needs them if you've got direct contact all your players out there? I guess the quarterback is probably going to have to get those linemen in order. They won't have the headsets, Bryant, but that's going to make for an interesting dynamic we've never really seen before in the game.
Well, June Jones brought it up in his interview, right? That the receivers, this is really going to help the receivers, maybe even the running backs who can't really hear the play or maybe are down the field or something like that. The quarterback can still huddle with his offensive linemen very quickly because the offensive linemen don't have to go far to get settled into their position. So I don't see that as a disadvantage for them. I think it's just going to be more of an advantage for the receivers to get, a little bit more time, take a breather when they're coming back and not having to rush all the way down to get into a huddle for no reason.
And let's hope it means that receivers aren't running the wrong route where a quarterback thinks they're going to be one place, throws it, and it's picked off. That would be disastrous And we've experienced that lately as Steeler fans, Jake. So we don't want to see that in the XFL. Hopefully this clears that up. What about defensively? Rumor is that 2 defensive players will have the headset. That came out this week on some social media, people talking about that. Would that be a disadvantage if only a few defensive players have the headset and all those offensive players get it, Jake?
Yeah, I actually think it would. If I was a defensive guy, I don't think I would like this.
Well, I don't know.
I don't think you have enough time.
I don't know.
Time for what?
Yeah, I don't know how essential it is because, like, the way you communicate on defense is like hardly a huddle. Most of the communication's already happening when you're set or when you're out there and the offense is walking to the line.
The before communication days, like on offense, you would always have to sub in a receiver, right, or somebody to get the play in, or the quarterback would have to hit the sideline and come back and try to get the play. On defense, and Alan, I played on the defensive side of the football, you looked at the sideline, they threw some signals at you, and you were good to go. Like, that was it. You didn't really have to, like, get a play in or get a stunt in. I mean, you get the play in, you huddle up, you go out to your position, you read what's going on. A lot of that's on the fly anyway, depending on what you see from the offense.
Well, do you think even 2 defensemen need to have a microphone, or could they just do one?
Well, I think the reason you have 2 is just because you never know what happens with one. You know, if somebody.
So 2 is about
second. I'd say you'd want someone in the secondary in the back of the defense, and someone up front like a linebacker who can communicate with the defensive line. So that would be the thinking behind it. If that's what the XFL goes with, we'll officially hear all that, I'm sure, in the coming weeks because, well, the league's planning for some announcements. Oliver Luck said that the championship location will be announced in early 2020, which is only a few weeks away. And I don't know. I'm still on the fence on what city I want it to be in. I don't know. I don't know, Jake. Do you have a preferred championship location?
I'm sure I did if I could remember what I said many episodes ago.
What about right now? It might have changed.
You can't go wrong with Vegas. I'll say that.
Well, I would if we're gonna go because we want gambling, I'm gonna go with Jersey then, Bryant, because you could gamble there too. You could place bets, and it's closer to me. So I'm gonna go with MetLife for right now.
So you would give it to you would not put it at a neutral location.
No, I want it in one of the 8 XFL cities for sure.
Okay, all right.
Bryant, you have a preferred place?
If you're going to put in one of the 8 markets, I think I think you're limited because a lot of those markets aren't going to be very interested unless you have some sort of spectacle going on. If that team is not involved, Vegas is the only outside chance I'd put it at of any of the markets not to be a host city and actually host a Super Bowl. It'd be interesting to see if this is a choice by the league or if people putting in bids for this. That they want this to happen in their city. That'd be kind of a good sign to see once that's announced. But we've had this discussion many times. I'm just going to be happy to have a championship game, and that is because of what happened to the AAF.
Yeah, some leagues don't get that.
Game. Some leagues don't get that opportunity.
Right.
They actually had 2 host cities for the championship game and didn't actually get to use either one of them. So I'm just glad that they're going to get to that point.
And another bit here, now we can confirm that rules will be confirmed after the holidays. So the league will finally reveal its rule book after the holidays, and we can confirm that now, Jake. According to XFL sources, they will be releasing the rule book after Christmas. So you won't be getting the rule book under your Christmas tree, not one of the eight nights of Hanukkah. After the holidays, you're going to be getting an XFL rulebook. So get that English accent ready, man.
What is that? Russian Christmas? Isn't that sometime after December 25th?
Boxing Day you also have. I don't know exactly. I think when you say holidays around this time of year, you also say New Year's, I think, too. So I think you're. I mean, I'm just assuming this, but I think it's past all that as well.
Yeah, probably after once you're back at work, and not hungover or bloated from all the overeating, that's where we get the rule book, baby. And I can't wait. Those are going to be such fun shows. Last bit here is that the XFL plans on having, like I said earlier, Oliver Luck will be at the Super Bowl, but is going to be all over Houston in January, just like he was with Minicamp. So expect to see the commissioner saying a lot and talking a lot about the league and giving us all insight the way he did during Minicamps, which I thought was awesome. I thought it was awesome during Minicamps, Bryant, to see the commissioner in every single city giving us so many details about the league.
Availability, right? The man is making towns, and you know what? Shout out to Sam Schwartzstein too. I saw on social media that he was all over the place as well. A lot of those guys are making towns, are making the rounds around on Minicamps. I'm sure answering questions, observing what's going on. They're putting this whole thing together, so make sure every little piece is put in place. I'll use Jake's reference as to every piece of the puzzle is in the right place. Kudos to them, because I don't think I could do 5 cities in 5 days or 8 and 9 or whatever it is that was going on there, because that's a lot of traveling.
Making towns and making the rounds. Taking the break now, though, because we've got the holidays coming up, and then we go to Houston for training camp. And what a year it's been. We've got one more left in 2019, Jake, before we wrap things up, and it's officially the year of kickoff 2020.
Is that according to Chinese New Year, the year of kickoff?
That's
kickoff.
Yeah. The year of the XFL is what 2020 will be remembered, at least by me, as. And I cannot wait. And I appreciate everybody for contributing to this show this week. Everybody from the Houston Roughnecks, the Dallas Renegades, Coach Jones, and, of course, Winston Craig. Thanks to everybody for reaching out to us at XFL Show. We're going to end 2020 the right way next week, but happy holidays to everybody. Until then, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Boxing Day, whatever you celebrate, stay safe and enjoy. I cannot wait to see what 2020 will be bringing us, though, in just a few short weeks, Bryant.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to anybody, because the show will air after Christmas. We'll be here before New Year's, so we'll save that till then. But another week closer, another day closer. Jake, give it to the people, because they want to hear it.
They're listening?
We're closer than ever.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
That's
not your line. That's
Vince's line, and he already left.
I thought. I didn't know what you were teaming up for.
He already left. He left middle of the show to go see his in-laws for Christmas. So it's up to you to give your line.
Okay, set me up again.
Jake, give it to the people, because
we're closer than ever.
I love it.
Nailed it.
We miss anything else, Bryant? I think we covered it all.
There's a lot going on. I'm sure we did miss something, to be 100% honest with everyone. But, I've been hammering for 2 shows for a few weeks now. We'll see if anybody actually listens to me at some point, because there's so much going on. But just make sure you're following us on Twitter at XFL Show. Follow the league, XFL.com, too. Tons of stuff going on there. Shout out to the league for putting our show 100 on there as well, so you can check that out as well. YouTube. What else can I throw out there? Anything else?
YouTube, XFL.com. We're there.
They're listening.
Yep, and I'll get to that in a second. And also, of course, the podcast feed. Subscribe to it. It's free, and it's on all podcast apps. And make sure you don't miss a thing every single weekend. There's going to be a lot more things coming because, like Brian said, there's too much to cover in one show anymore. So changes coming. With the new year comes a new schedule for us, and we'll be revealing that pretty soon. So keep your eyes peeled at XFL Show and keep your ears open to your podcast applications.
That's how it works.
What? Eyes aren't peeled?
Eyes open and your ears peeled.
You peel ears?
I don't think you peel eyes, though. Can we just keep them open and call it a day?
Don't peel your eyes.
And remember, fans, they're listening.
Don't peel your eyes. Enjoy the rest of 2019, because pretty soon it's going to be over, and it will be kickoff year, baby. For Jake, for Vince, for Bryant, I'm Alan. This is the XFL Show. Remember, they're listening.
Thanks for watching and listening, XFL fans. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments below, or even better, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things XFL.
Check out some of our other videos and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at XFL Show. This is the XFL Show is a production of Pretty Easy Podcasts.